أهلا بكم. كيف يمكن أن يؤثر الاقتصاد الأخضر على الاستدامة البيئية؟ وكيف يمكن أن يؤثر هذا الاقتصاد واستخداماته على حياتنا كأفراد وكمجتمعات؟ هذا ما نناقشه اليوم مع ضيفتي وضيفة الشارقة الدكتورة دينا شريف، المديرة التنفيذية ل MIT كو شاربر للازدهار وريادة الأعمال. Dina, welcome to our show and welcome to Sharjah. You recently participated in Sharjah International Government Communication Forum 2025 in a session titled Green Economy, a New Vision for Food and Development, highlighted opportunities to build sustainable food systems. From your perspective, what key steps are needed in the Arab region, especially, to achieve this vision, and which initiatives stood out to you during the forum to support the green economy?
First of all, Reen, thank you so much for hosting me on your show, and it's really wonderful to be back in Sharjah. I haven't been here for a while, so it's nice to be back. It's a little bit warmer than Boston, but it's still lovely to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you here.
Thank you. I think, for me, the green economy, we talk about the green economy as if it's still coming, but the green economy has come. And the Arab region needs to start moving quickly to ensure that it embraces concepts of sustainability. And I think we can be leaders, global leaders in a number of areas, including sustainable agriculture and the ability to create food security for ourselves, and to take advantage of technology and the integration of technology within our agriculture systems. So I think for me, one of the key messages that I delivered at the conference is universities need to be focused on taking R&D in the agriculture space, specifically with regards to water and water scarcity, and how to work in agriculture in a way that doesn't over-consume water. And with that, you can use all kinds of technology to do that. But also because of our extremely warm climates and the harsh weather that exists in our part of the world, specifically the GCC, how can we use technology to make sure that our agriculture crops are protected and not destroyed from the harsh climates that we sometimes experience. So basically the message was, we have great universities, we need to use them, we need to use the scientists, we need to embrace science and technology, and we need to use that and go to market with solutions that make sense for us. I also want to add, because I'm a woman and you're a woman, the Arab region has the highest youth unemployment rate, but it has the highest female youth unemployment rate in the world. And the green economy has the potential, if we really embrace principles of sustainability and inclusion, really has the potential to create the kind of jobs for our youth and to really integrate women in a way that creates really sustainable and good jobs within the green economy and also specifically within agriculture.
Yeah, I think youth will be brilliant, especially women, of course, if they're being given the opportunity to emphasize, in these jobs, or
well, you
become
can use
interpreters.
technology to create access, right? We can use technology to create better access to job opportunities for women and make it easier for women to enter into the labor force. And that will have multiple impacts on our GDP growth rates in the Arab region. And I think the UAE is in a great position to lead in that space of using technology and innovation, especially with the focus on AI and robotics here, to really think about how we can apply technology to transition fast to the green economy and create jobs for our youth and for our women.
Yeah. During the session, you emphasized the importance of public-private collaboration and accelerating the shift towards a green economy. In your opinion, what strategic policies or partnerships could truly transform the path towards sustainable food development?
I think the government needs to really embrace the private sector and collaborate with them to create deeper integration across agriculture systems. The Arab region is very fragmented, and our farming sectors are extremely fragmented. But there are many examples of how the private sector is working to create deeper integration within local agricultural systems. We need to have governments work together across the Arab region so that we can integrate our agriculture systems together using technology so that as a region as a whole, we create food security with what we have. Because Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Tunisia, Morocco, these are all countries that have fairly decent agriculture sectors, and the UAE is investing heavily in agriculture, so is Saudi Arabia, and everyone else. How can we work together and use government policy to create that integration and then partner with the private sector to really see that integration happen?
I think we all agree that technology brings opportunities, but also complexity. What are the biggest obstacles governments face when embedding AI and advanced technology into urban infrastructure, and what strategies could help overcome them?
I think that's such a good question, and I think it's a question that everyone is thinking about within the AI space. I mean, look, technology is a tool, and I work at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the focus on how do you use science for good. But science can also be used in a very bad way and can also be used for evil, right? And I think the biggest issue facing countries like the UAE and countries like mine, Egypt, or I would say emerging markets around the world, or what we call growth markets, is how do we define the use of AI for ourselves? And how do we use it for our own societies in a way that makes sense for us?
Yeah.
And how do we not just import that technology from Western countries, but rather how do we take that technology and adapt it to what makes sense for us? And for that, we need government policies, right? We need to create a regulatory environment that really allows us to use AI to advance our societies and to advance prosperity, as we say at my center. But we don't want to just consume it using Western models. We need to be creating models that make sense for our culture, for our religion, for who we are, and that can be adapted and used in ways that we want to use to develop our own sectors. So I think governments have a big role to play in the ethics component, but also in the application component, because what is AI? AI is data, right? And we need to be using our own data and not assuming that whatever we put into ChatGPT, for example, represents us.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we are adequately represented in that big data, global data pool. And that's where I think governments have a big role to play. And I think because the UAE has already positioned itself as a leader in this space and it has been making huge investments, the first minister of AI in the world, but also you have a university in Abu Dhabi that focuses on AI. The UAE can really position itself as a hub, but also as a leader that works with other Arab governments to develop a system that makes sense for our countries on how we apply these advanced technologies here. And then how do we use that to solve some of our biggest challenges, such as water scarcity, such as food security, such as energy. We have been known to be providing energy to the world, right? But now we need to transition to how can we become leaders in providing clean energy to the world? And we can, because this region, we are blessed with wind and sun.
Yeah.
That is the beauty that the desert has given us. It's a wonderful gift. People think we come from deserts, oh, we're poor. This is not. We have incredible assets in the form of sun and wind, which can be used for clean energy. The question is, how can we all work together to transition to really developing, like in my country, we have one of the largest solar energy spaces in Upper Egypt in the region. But how can we see more of that? How can we create better integration? And then how can we start becoming exporters of clean energy in the same way we were exporters of oil and natural gas? But we can easily also become the leaders in providing clean energy for ourselves and to the rest of the world.
Yeah. In your view, what role should governments and official institutions play in fast-tracking the transition to sustainable, future-ready cities?
I mean, well, of course, I'm the entrepreneurship lady, so I'm going to say governments should be creating enabling environments for entrepreneurship, specifically innovation-driven entrepreneurship, to thrive. We need to not be scared of technology. We need to embrace it and encourage our young entrepreneurs to really be coming up with solutions that can then be exported to the rest of the world. And I think governments, we know, play a big role in creating enabling business environments, but they can also play a big role in supporting research and development on university campuses by providing financial resources, but also incentives for universities, not just to do research and development for the sake of writing an incredible publication and putting it on a shelf, but rather really incentivizing the ability of universities to take R&D and actually go to market. So commercialize it and take it to market. We're not there yet in this region. I think the UAE can easily transition to being a country that focuses on commercialization of R&D and becoming a hub for deep technology, but that requires political will and the actual provision of resources and the kind of incentives required and support required to actually focus on our scientists and say, we want you now to become entrepreneurs. Because innovation is only innovation if it's commercialized.
Yeah. Do you think that in this region, the governmental narrative should be changed towards the startups, towards youth people, to encourage them to be entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Yeah?
100%. I mean, I live in the United States, and all day long when we watch Western media, we hear about the Arab region being a place of conflict, oppression, war, and that's a single narrative.
Yeah.
And we are so much more. You know, we have always been a place of innovation and creativity. And I say this all the time with enormous pride. I am Egyptian. Innovation was I mean, there's so much innovation in my country. Think about the Great Pyramids of Giza. That was the mother of all innovation at the time. How do you, engineering, math, all of these things that were integrated into building these pyramids that have existed for thousands and thousands of years. Plus, medicine, mathematics, so much innovation came from the Muslim civilization. We need to be sharing another narrative. It's not that we are learning about innovation from the West. Innovation has always been here.
Yeah.
And incredible principles of leadership exist in our culture, in our religion. So the question is, how do we use that to rebuild a narrative of this region has always been a hub of innovation, and we're now entering a new era. And that new era is going to be driven by, we will be using science and technology to quickly transition to a green economy, and we will be exporting to the West what they need to actually transition to a green economy, because we're in a much better position than they are when it comes to being able to leapfrog and actually leave behind systems that have not safeguarded our environment. And this is specifically true here in the GCC and in the UAE, because as countries, you are young and you don't have legacy systems, and so you can be quickly leaders in so many things.
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we should be sharing that narrative to counter some of the narratives that are out in the world and to demonstrate all of the incredible entrepreneurs that we have incredible stories.
Yeah.
You know, when Amazon and when Uber came to the Arab region, they found great businesses to acquire in Souq.com and Kareem, right?
Do you believe entrepreneurs and startups can become leading forces in designing socially and environmentally urban solutions?
Yes,
How?
1000%. We're already doing it. 1000%. I think, so I wrote a policy paper a couple of years back. It was published on WAMDA here in the UAE about how if we choose, right? Everything in life is about options and what you choose to do. If we choose, we can create another model for entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. So, you know, contrary to people say Silicon Valley, it is the model that we all want to follow. And I say, no, we don't, because it is not an inclusive model. It is extremely anti-women. And here in our region, we have a beautiful opportunity to actually build ecosystems that have the beautiful principles that exist in our culture, and specifically fil Islam, which is really inclusion and being collective and bringing diverse opinions into the room. And also we have incredible female entrepreneurs. And one thing that is very special about the GCC in particular is we have the highest percentage of female graduates in STEM. Nobody knows that, but we have the highest percentage of female graduates in STEM coming out of the GCC. Now the question is, how do we work with those women to help them transition to becoming entrepreneurs and to taking some of the research that they have been doing and using that and applying it to solving our problems? So I think, yeah, entrepreneurs have incredible power to create prosperity, an incredible ability to create prosperity. The question is whether we want to create a space that will really allow and unleash that potential to come and drive us to the next chapter of prosperity that is green, in other words, sustainable and inclusive of everyone in our society.
As an executive director of the MIT Sharper Center for Prosperity and Entrepreneurship, what does the center's name change, formerly Liyatun, I think, signify about its evolving mission and long-term vision?
I love that question, and nobody has ever asked me that question. So Legatum, who are actually based here in the UAE, in Dubai, at the Dubai International Financial Center, they are a finance firm, and they were the core funders of what used to be the Legatum Center for Development and Entrepreneurship. And they were the core donor for, 17 years. It was a long time. And what does Legatum mean? Legatum means legacy. And I think because their approach is, they want to help things start. And I think they did a great job of starting the center and building a part of the legacy that we hope to leave in the world. But I think they felt it was time for somebody else to come in and bring in new blood and fresh ideas and take the center to the next level. So the MIT Sharper Center, we changed to the word prosperity and entrepreneurship because that is at the very core of our mission, which is prosperity can and should be achieved through responsible, innovation-driven entrepreneurship. And the Kuo Sharper piece came from when I came to look for who I would like to be the new name donor. I, by coincidence, and this is what life is about serendipity. أو يمكن ربنا بيرتب الدنيا in a particular way. I like to believe. I met an incredible woman whose name is Sayuri Sharper, and she is an MIT alum. She and her husband, Craig Sharper, she's a Chinese-American incredible woman. They both went to MIT. They started their own business because MIT, that's what people at MIT do. They go to MIT and they go start a business. It's one of the most entrepreneurial universities in the world.
Yeah.
And they started a business. They exited to a big company, and then they used their money to make, increase the amount of wealth they had, and then they started giving their money philanthropically. And when I met Sayuri Sharper, she was doing all of this work in Africa. She was supporting funds in Africa. She really believes that Africa is the future. And in many ways it is, because Africa, of its big youth population, and when you think about the amount of minerals that come from Africa that are used in everything, Africa is turning around. The narrative is shifting. It's not just the poor Africa that people used to think about. Africa is also starting to really boost entrepreneurship and innovation, and it's using that to build its own prosperity. So she really embedded what our mission meant. She was putting her money in these entrepreneurs that we're talking about. She was investing in what people call the developing world or the global south. I don't know what the global south means, but she came to me and she said, I love your mission. I love the entrepreneurs that you're working with. I want to take it to the next level. And so she came in and we renamed the center, the MIT Kuo Sharper Center, with one belief that we want to see prosperity through entrepreneurship. And we call that the new calculus for global prosperity. And when I talk about the new calculus for global prosperity, that new calculus is about how do we embrace entrepreneurs as agents of change, as people who will transform our systems and who will create sustainable and inclusive prosperity. And how do we make sure that at the very core of this next generation of entrepreneurs and the continued pipeline of entrepreneurs that will emerge, that they are thinking in terms of transforming systems, they are thinking using sustainability principles, and they are thinking in terms of inclusion and really embedding values that can make a difference in the world. And that is what we call the new calculus for global prosperity. It is equitable, it is just, it is kind, and it respects the nature that we come from.
Beautiful. The center supports entrepreneurship and emerging economies across Africa and Asia, as you said.
Everywhere in the world.
Everywhere in the
All
world.
emerging markets in the world,
Yeah.
including here.
What is your global expansion strategy, and how do you aim to empower young innovators to create high-impact ventures?
I will tell you, but now it's going to be out in the public. So, first of all, we reject in the new calculus for prosperity. There's certain language that we reject. Number one, I think it's for a reason that the word emerging markets or the global south is being used by Western-based institutions to describe us, and these words somehow create an image of we are below and somebody else is above. Or we are, and I say this all the time, we are still developing, we are still evolving, we are still emerging. I don't believe this, right? Everyone is still evolving. We are no different than the West. And if we're going to be really honest, the highest growth rates in the world come from markets like ours. And in countries like the UAE, they're driving major change. So we say global growth markets until we can find a better word to represent countries that are really beginning to grow at a much more rapid rate. I think that for us, we have a belief that if you create the right space and provide the right education and the right tools and access to the right community of investors and different ecosystem stakeholders, entrepreneurs will thrive. So the goal of the center is to work with entrepreneurs and ecosystem players across the global growth markets from Latin America to Asia, and to really see this philosophy be at the very core of how governments want to see their countries prosper, and at the very heart of that, use technology and innovation. So you asked about our global strategy. So we are a center that is based at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that is focusing on global growth markets. So a part of our global strategy is how can we establish hubs or bases in different regions of part of the world so that we can multiply our work, contextualize the best of MIT frameworks to the regional context, make it very relevant, and really see the use of, or I don't want to say use, but really see entrepreneurship and innovation be multiplied in the very markets that we serve. So if you're asking me what my dream is to start a hub here in the UAE, because the UAE is so unique in the sense, I mean, you would think I would say I want it in my country, Egypt, or, but if I were to choose a starting place, I would say the UAE. Why? Because it gives easy access to Asia, easy access to Africa, easy access to the Arab region.
I hope this dream come true. But let's talk about your work in Egypt. You founded Ahead of the Curve in Cairo, a pioneering organization championing sustainable entrepreneurship and corporate social responsibility. So what was the diving vision behind launching this initiative?
I'm many things, but I'm not many things, but here's one thing I am. I'm very consistent. So when I started Ahead of the Curve in Egypt, that was in 2011. So it was kind of in the midst of all the chaos of this uprising and what is all these things happening in the Arab region. And, my entire life, I have been driven by one thing. How can I make the world a better place? Right? And how can we make it a more equitable place? And how can we solve some of these problems that actually we thought the West was going to solve for us, but they didn't? So how do we use our own resources and our own knowledge to solve our own problems? And so, I had spent years studying philanthropy. And in my research on philanthropy, I became very obsessed with the intersection of the private sector and sustainable development. And that's where Ahead of the Curve was born. So the idea was how could we work with big corporates, top down, to really infuse this idea of sustainability being at the very core of management. But then how can we build bottom up ventures that were impact-driven, system thinkers, and sustainable from the very beginning. And so we worked top-down with big corporates through kind of boutique consulting. We took our profits and we created programs to train youth on impact-driven entrepreneurship across the Arab region. And, I was CEO of the company until late 2018. And then I stepped down and I transitioned to MIT in 2019, but Ahead of the Curve continues to exist. I continue to support, and the beauty of that mission continues to exist because when you think about solving problems, nobody can scale solutions faster than the private sector. So we all need to be thinking about how we can partner with and create the kind of regulatory environment that ensures that the private sector stays both responsible, inclusive, and sustainable at the heart of it.
Also in Egypt, you've served as a consultant for Ashoka, one of the largest global networks for social innovation. How did this experience shape your approach for supporting social entrepreneurs?
There's no other organization in the world, I believe anyway, like Ashoka, that really believes in systems transformation. So people who are really thinking at a systems level and transforming systems for the better. That's who a social entrepreneur is. Now, in the Arab region, like social entrepreneurship, actually not just the Arab region, everywhere in the world, social entrepreneurship tends to people tend to think, oh, they're NGOs, or they sacrifice profit for social benefit. And this is what I believe. I believe that at the very core of capitalism was always to generate value, multiple layers of value. Now, we always say, when Milton Friedman says the business of business is to make profit, nobody finishes what comes after that, which is we really need to rely on governments to dictate how the private sector should behave in a society. And so I have a big belief that at the very heart of real entrepreneurship and innovation has always been to create multiple layers of value. And we don't really need the label of social entrepreneur, because by definition, a real innovation-driven entrepreneur will be solving a big societal challenge at scale and will be transforming a system. And that's the kind of capitalism we should all be promoting. And that's the kind of regulatory environment we should have. We should really be pushing for private sector to really be at that intersection of making society a better place and not negatively impacting, not creating social inequity. That has to be controlled by the government. But I also believe that really good entrepreneurs, they fight for equity. They fight for social justice. The fellows I work with in my center, they really do believe that they can make the world a better, more equitable place through their businesses.
Yeah. About researchers, your study on corporate social responsibility spanned 7 Arab nations. Which findings surprised you most and why?
Oh, that's so old, this study. I have to think. What surprised me? I don't know that I was surprised, but here's what I continue to think is very unique about the Arab region. Our culture and our religious beliefs, no matter what religion, but this is the same across the Arab region, is that we believe in, there are really beautiful values that exist in our culture. Now, what was surprising to me is how much we are always looking to borrow from Western corporate values as opposed to defining our own. So for this region is one of the most charitable regions in the world. And Islam as a religion, I believe, this is a Dina belief, has created the most perfect framework for how we can create social justice and equity within the societies that we exist in. It is absolutely perfect. It has everything from zakat to sadaqah to waqf al-Islami. And embedded in all of that is the concept of social equity and social justice. And so I think what surprised me is that we, in our culture and in our religion, is embedded all the values that we need to create sustainable, inclusive societies. So why not celebrate that and embed it and embrace it within the very heart of our companies and show the rest of the world what that can look like? So I think what surprised me is that we are constantly looking to the West to define what sustainability looks like, to define how we should be integrating corporate social responsibility. We don't need to, because it was always embedded in the very core of our values and our religious beliefs, whether it be in Christianity or Islam or Judaism. It makes no difference. It's all embedded. Yeah. So how do we take that beauty and integrate it in how we manage companies and the role our companies play in society? I think my biggest finding was that we are borrowing from Western definitions of corporate sustainability when we could be using our own and really demonstrating to the rest of the world that, well, this already existed in our, and actually historically, Islam is perfect in many ways. It even has a framework for how business should be conducted, right? And what leadership should look like. If we take that and really apply it to modern times, we will be living in perfectly equitable
That's right.
societies that are perfectly sustainable and where we are absolute stewards of the environment and the nature that we exist in.
You also co-authored the 2015 UNDP report, Business Solutions. What key recommendations emerged from that research?
I feel so old. It's interesting to look back on some of the things that I did. I think the biggest core recommendation that we put forth in that particular report was the importance of this was specifically focused on Egypt, so the importance of the Egyptian government partnering with the private sector and really truly partnering with them to solve some of Egypt's largest problems. But also another big recommendation was that we need to create an environment that allows for the exponential growth of the private sector. Our private sector is too small, and it has the potential to grow. So the recommendation at the time is that the Egyptian government needs to really embrace the important role that the private sector can play, not just in creating jobs, although that's very important in the Egyptian context, but in how private sector can work with government to solve some really big problems.
You mentioned that you studied philanthropy for a long time. How do you envision the future of philanthropy, and what can organizations do to ensure lasting, sustainable impact rather than temporarily fixes, maybe?
For the Arab region?
For the Arab region.
My dream. Nowhere else in the world will you find people as generous and hospitable as the people of this region.
True.
You will not. I have traveled everywhere. It is unmatched. The generosity and grace of the Arab people, it's unmatched. Now, I think when I started studying philanthropy and I saw how charitable we were, and then I really took the time to study the principles of Islamic giving, I thought to myself, why are we not really I was just talking about this morning. Why are we really not embodying that and embracing it? And when I think about, everything I learned about Western philanthropy and the importance of institutionalizing giving so that we can be more strategic and long-term in how we solve big social challenges, I think, okay, well, in the US you have all of these big philanthropic foundations that were endowed by people from the private sector. So private sector wealth was actually created to build these big foundations that were giving money philanthropically in the form of grants with governance and a proper system, institutionalized system of that giving, like the Ford Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation or the Gates Foundation. And I think to myself, okay, well, the endowment, al-Waqf al-Islami existed centuries before the Western endowment existed, and it was created to ensure long-term social equity and social justice, right?
Right.
So my dream is that we in the Arab region, we come back and we embrace our heritage and our culture and the principles in our religion, and we use that to demonstrate how we, on our own, can use our own charity and philanthropy to create social equity within our communities, but also to solve really big problems when it comes to energy, when it comes to job creation, when it comes to water scarcity. We have education, healthcare. This is where al-Waqf al-Islami can be used.
Yeah.
And we should go back and use it for these long-term. Charity is about short-term, right? It's about, making sure that somebody who is not as privileged as you does not suffer because they don't have food, or does not suffer because they don't have access to medicine. But philanthropy is about really looking long-term and generating the kind of solutions to safeguard your society in the long term. And that's where we can start using, our own wealth to create our own institutions that are really focused on creating long-term solutions here in this region. The biggest discovery I made was that Arab philanthropy was going outside of the region, and we need it to stay here. We need it to invest in our universities here. I recently published a report about the role of philanthropy in the GCC, the role of philanthropy and entrepreneurship and innovation in the GCC. Huge role to play. It's playing a very small role, and it can play a much bigger role. And why is this important? It's important because we need to create jobs, and jobs will make sure that our country stays secure. We need to create opportunity. We need to solve problems. All of that fits within our values and our core beliefs religiously. Why not do it? You know, we should be investing. And so I found that philanthropy was investing very little in entrepreneurship and innovation here, but it was investing a lot outside. And
unfortunately.
And we need to reverse that.
Yeah, we need to reverse it, actually. Before we end this, do you have any word to spread or any word to say to the youth?
Yeah. I want to say that they should be so proud to be Arab, to be from this part of the world, because we have a beautiful heritage. We have centuries of history in innovation, in culture. And I want to say, be proud, because whether you're Egyptian or Emirati or Saudi or Jordanian, you come from a beautiful part of the world, and you should be spreading that narrative. And you should also be working very hard to make this region a better place, because that's our role. We have a moral obligation to continue to make our countries better, but to also make sure that we are integrating, because we are all one, right? We speak one language. We come from the same extended land. When I walk in the desert of Egypt, I feel like I'm very connected to the desert of the UAE, and that should all be celebrated and embraced. So I just want to say, be proud of who you are and where you come from. And if you're an Emirati, be extremely proud, because this country is very forward-looking, and really take agency to be a part of finding solutions and making not just the UAE, but the world a better place.
Yeah, I love that. If we have as many as your mentality, I think we'll be fine in the future. Thank you, Dr. Dina, for being with us.
You.
It's been an honor to have you here in our program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The honor is all mine.
شكرا للدكتورة دينا الشريف، وشكرا لكم مشاهدينا على المتابعة. إلى اللقاء.